AI Historic Expeditions presents 26 fascinating facts about famous historic figures. As we begin our video, let's take a moment to appreciate the remarkable Cleopatra. Did you know that she was a multilingual genius who could speak at least 7 languages, including Greek and Egyptian? Moving on to Alexander the Great. Did you know that despite his many conquests and fearless reputation, he had a deep fear of cats? That's right. This mighty warrior was said to have disliked cats so much that he was terrified of them. Despite being the King of England, Richard the Lionheart was more comfortable speaking French and spent little time in England. He was raised in France and considered it his home, spending most of his reign either fighting in foreign lands or ruling from his French territories. Did you know that Ambrosius Aurelianus, an important figure in 5th century AD Britain, is believed to be the main inspiration for the legend of King Arthur? His military prowess and leadership during the Roman-British Wars may have served as the basis for the heroic figure of King Arthur. Did you know that Joan of Arc, the famous French heroine, never actually fought in battles? Instead, she carried a banner into battle as a symbol of inspiration. Although she did not wield a weapon, she still faced danger and was wounded twice during her military campaigns. After being defeated in the Battle of Watling Street, Queen Boudica and her daughters reportedly poisoned themselves. It's believed that they took this drastic measure to avoid the fate that awaited them at the hands of the victorious Romans. King Henry VIII had many talents, including composing music and playing various instruments. But despite what the legends say, he did not write the famous tune Greensleeves. Maybe he was too busy juggling his many wives to sit down and write a hit song. Next up, let's talk about the one and only Napoleon. Turns out, he wasn't just a conqueror. He was also a fan of playing dress-up. Yep, Napoleon would disguise himself as a regular Joe and hit the streets of Paris to get some honest feedback on his rule. Did you know that without Queen Victoria and her husband, we might not have Christmas trees as we know them today? Prince Albert sent decorated pine trees to schools and army barracks, making the Christmas tree all the rage. So if you're enjoying the twinkling lights and festive ornaments on your tree this year, don't forget to give a little nod to good old Queen Vic and her hubby. Did you know that August was named after Caesar Augustus? It's true, and not just because he was so hot in his toga, although I'm sure that helped. He actually died in the month of Sextilis, but they renamed it after him because, well, let's face it, he was a pretty big deal. Caligula had a bit of a narcissistic streak. He went as far as building a temple dedicated to himself, and on its grand opening, he made an entrance dressed like a goddess. And if that's not enough, he also had a bit of a cross-dressing habit, often sporting women's dresses. I guess he just couldn't resist showing off his divine beauty in every way possible. Marcus Aurelius's mother had a significant impact on his life, including the choice of his tutors and the cultivation of a circle of intellectuals who visited their home. She was a powerful figure in his upbringing and education. Contrary to what the name might suggest, Julius Caesar had nothing to do with the Caesar salad. The dish was actually invented in 1924 by an Italian-born chef named Cesar Cardini while he was working in Tijuana, Mexico. So next time you enjoy a delicious Caesar salad, just remember that it's not Roman, it's Mexican-Italian. Did you know that Spartacus, the famous gladiator and rebel leader, didn't have the luxury of a Home Depot to get his weapons? In 73 BC, he and around 70 other slaves had to make do with whatever they could steal from the kitchen, like a giant spoon or a ladle. But once they fought their way out of the gladiatorial school, they were able to upgrade their arsenal with real weapons and armor. Legend has it that Attila the Hun's sword was found by a herdsman after it injured one of his cows while grazing. Attila, being the magnanimous warlord that he was, graciously accepted the sword and believed that it bestowed invincibility upon him. Did you know that Emperor Charlemagne was quite the proud papa? He had a whopping 18 children and made sure they received a proper education. But he was a bit of a control freak when it came to his daughters. He didn't allow them to get married during his lifetime, probably to avoid their husbands' families getting too big for their britches. Talk about daddy issues. In 324 AD, Constantine the Great founded the city of Constantinople, which became the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire and the largest and wealthiest city in Europe. The city was built on the site of the ancient Greek city of Byzantium and played a key role in the spread of Christianity throughout the world. Leonardo da Vinci spent his final days in bed, with King Francis I of France by his side. He was probably binge-watching Netflix and munching on croissants. Jokes aside, he deeply regretted not achieving more with his talent, and left most of his work unfinished. But hey, we all know the feeling of procrastination, right? It is said that Michelangelo was so focused on his work that he often neglected his personal hygiene. He would work for days on end without changing his clothes or washing himself, which made him quite a smelly figure. It's a good thing he didn't have many visitors to his studio. You know what they say? Necessity is the mother of invention. And in Rembrandt's case, the need for a clean palette led him to create a whole new technique. He was tired of washing his brushes all the time, so he thought, hey, why not just slap some paint on there with a knife? And thus, the palette knife was born, and so were some pretty amazing paintings. Looks like Vincent van Gogh couldn't quite decide what to do with his life. He tried his hand at art dealing, teaching, and even preaching before finally settling on what he was truly meant to do: paint masterpieces that would go on to be worth millions. It's a good thing he didn't give up too soon, or we might never have seen those beautiful sunflowers. Did you know that Bach's music was almost lost to history? When he died, much of his work was unpublished and forgotten. But then along came Felix Mendelssohn, who resurrected Bach's music from obscurity with a performance of the Matthew Passion. It was a huge hit, proving once again that good music never goes out of style. It seems that even the great Beethoven had his limits when it came to teaching piano. He wasn't a fan of it, but he was willing to make an exception for those who showed true talent, or for attractive young women, regardless of their musical ability. So if you were a mediocre pianist, it might have been time to invest in some good looks. Did you know that Mozart was a Freemason? Yes, that's right. The famous composer was not only a musical genius, but also a member of the mysterious fraternity. He took his commitment seriously, attending meetings and bonding with fellow Masons. Maybe that's why his music has such a mysterious quality to it. It's no wonder Vivaldi was such a hot commodity in his time. With that luscious, curly red hair, he was basically a walking Italian stallion. In fact, he was even nicknamed Il Prete Rosso, the Red Priest, by his friends. His father, on the other hand, was stuck with the much less exciting nickname Rossi, simply because he had red hair too. Tough break. As we approach the end of our journey through fascinating historical facts, we now arrive at the last interesting piece of information. It turns out that George Washington was actually the original nutcracker. Who knew that his habit of cracking walnuts with his teeth would lead to the downfall of the delicious nut? And as for his dentures, they were definitely one of a kind. A combination of human teeth, ivory, cow teeth, and even lead. I guess you could say that Washington had a leading smile, but in reality, he never smiled at all. And with that, we come to the end of our series on 26 fascinating facts about famous historic figures. We hope you enjoyed learning about these interesting tidbits from the lives of some of the world's most influential people. From Leonardo da Vinci's unfulfilled potential to George Washington's unique dentures, each fact offered a glimpse into the quirks and complexities of these historical figures. To add a touch of visual interest, we even included AI-generated portraits of each figure, offering a fresh and modern interpretation of their iconic visages. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history, and we hope to see you again soon for more intriguing insights and AI-generated artwork.